Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you were able to make the webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 tweaks to create the vegetable garden that you love. I'm Anna Hackman, and I'm your host tonight. So, you're probably wondering, who am I? For those of you who aren't part of my regular email subscribers, you decided to take a leap of faith and listen to a webinar about how to garden, but you know nothing about me. So, let me give you a little bit of background. I've been gardening for 9 years, and I'm the editor of Green Talk, which is a green living blog, where I often talk about my garden successes and a lot about my failures. And one of the reasons that I write a lot about both successes and failures is one, it enables me to tell you what I've done wrong so that you don't have to do the same thing. And two, the more successes I have, the more it's going to encourage you to increase your gardening efforts. In addition, I'm also the co-founder of the Green Sisterhood, which is a green women blogging network. But what makes me uniquely qualified to teach gardening? I can count on my hands and toes, and probably your hands and toes as well, how many mistakes I've made. But here's the deal. I'm still gardening, and I've been doing it for 9 years. So that's a testimony of, I get right back on the horse every time I make a failure, and the next year's a new year, and I correct my mistakes, and I try something new. And so what I want to tell you about is where I started from. I started from 5 heirloom tomato bushes that I planted in the wrong time. I planted them in July. You don't do that, but I did it anyways. Saved the seeds and used those plants over and over again. I actually keep the seeds in my freezer. I love these seeds. So now, 9 years later, fast forward, I have 32 raised beds, 21 blueberry bushes, 40 raspberry bushes, like who's counting, 15 blackberry bushes, 1.5 grape plants because the other plant, I have 2 of them, one is giving me tremendous agita, and 9 apple trees, 2 peach trees, and a ton of herbs. And the picture you're seeing in front of you is kind of a sideways view of my garden. I have about a half an acre that I garden on with herbs, and the apple trees and the peach trees are there. And this picture was probably taken 3 years into gardening, and I'm kind of laughing at it because it's just so much more overgrown than what it looks like. It looks very tame in this picture. It's not tame anymore. The first picture that you see, it's roses, and they're twice the sizes of that now. So it's kind of fun for me to look at this picture and think, oh my gosh, it was so much easier back then. And what I want to instill in you today is never give up. So you make mistakes. No big deal. That's how we learn as gardeners. So you get right back up and you go another year and you learn from it and you plant something new, and it is so rewarding. And that's why I've been doing it for 9 years. So what's the motto here? Never give up. So before we start, let's find out about you. I don't know anything about some of you. Are you a total newbie gardener, never planted anything in your life? A semi-newbie gardener, you've planted a small garden and want to learn more? A semi-newbie gardener who is struggling and not sure why? Or perhaps maybe you're a fellow veteran gardener who wants to learn some more tricks from this old dog. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer, and I'll tell you the results. Well, this is surprising so far. 40% of you are veteran gardeners. Wow. 44% of you are newbies who are struggling, and 11% of you are newbies who just want to learn more. I'm surprised. I thought I'd have more total newbie gardeners on the call. Let's go on. I have another poll for you. I'm curious. Why do you want to grow your own food? Worried about pesticides in your food? Want to know where your food comes from? Want to teach your children how to garden? Worried about GMO foods? Other. I'll give you a second to answer. Now, by the way, this is a multiple answer. You can answer more than one item in this poll. Wow, 75% of you are worried about pesticides. 75% of you are worried about where your food comes from. 38% of you want to teach your children. And 63% of you are worried about GMO foods. And we even have some others in here. If you want to tell me in the chat box what the other is, I'll wait. You don't have to. There's no need to. I guess we didn't get any answer for that. Okay, let's go on. Why do our gardens fail? I can count probably 100 reasons why gardens fail. I've seen a lot of it over the last 9 years, talking to fellow gardeners, seeing other people's gardens. But I kind of wanted to give you about maybe 10 because these are the ones most common that I hear about. Too much water. Poor planning, meaning that you just plant anything and everything and really don't think about what you're planting. Wrong seeds for your area. Improper spacing. Not enough sun. And there's more. Too ambitious. I've known gardeners that have started for the first time and they'll plant like 20, 25 different plants and then they wonder why things fail. It's way too ambitious. Planting at the wrong time. Planting when you're not supposed to put your plants out because they're frost sensitive. And personally, I think the number one reason is pests. People don't anticipate they're going to have pests, so they're not having trouble with that word, vigilant in watching after their plants. And all of a sudden their plants are devoured and they're like, oh my gosh, what happens? Don't despair. I'm going to get you back on your feet. Look at this turtle. He's going to be turning them right side up in a second. So I'm going to take out my magic wand and we're going to focus on 5 tweaks that we're going to deal with today that'll help you get back on your feet. Okay, so we're going to talk about soil issues, and we're probably going to talk a lot more about soil issues than the other ones below because that's really, to me, very, very important. Improper spacing, lack of sun, planting at the wrong time, and not feeding your plants. Soil issues. I put a picture of I think this is a butterfly bush. I think this is one of the ones that I grew because I wanted to just show you what I mulch my beds with. Now, these are beds that are not vegetable gardens. These are my herb beds or, my shrubs. This is wood mulch, and I get it for free from the town, and it's very chunky, and it aerates, meaning that it's very easy for water to get through it. And my plants love this. And in fact, when it decomposes, it is the most amazing compost you've ever seen. It just smells beautiful and it's light and fluffy and it's great stuff. So if you can get some wood mulch, of course, find out, if those trees have been sprayed or they have poison ivy on them, because I happen to have some of the trees that do get chipped to have a little bit of poison ivy on them, and I've gotten poison ivy from the wood chips because the oil. But find out from your town if they do this, or talk to any tree companies because this makes great mulch. And if you can create a pile of it over to the side of your garden and let it decompose, you can use this as mulch, as compost in your garden. Okay, on to soil issues. Number 1 rule: test your soil every couple of years. The reason why I'm telling you to test your soil is plants grow because they need with certain nutrients that are in the soil. If they're not in the soil, it's going to cause the plant to suffer. Think of the human body. If we're missing vitamins or minerals, it's a problem. We're not gonna prosper. And it's the same thing with plants. And a lot of people just assume that their soil's missing X or Y or Z, and they have no idea. So what they end up doing is creating a situation where there's way too much of one particular mineral than another, and it will have a problem. Your plants will have a problem. So I've underlined this because it's really important. Stop randomly feeding the soil what you think it needs. It may be making your plants very, very unhappy. So when you go to the garden store and you want to pick up lime and you have no idea why you should pick it up, stop. Now, I used a quote from North Carolina Department of Agriculture because I thought it was just so telling of what people do. When people apply too much lime, the soil pH may rise, which causes nutrients such as iron, boron, copper, and zinc to become less available to the plant. And this is such a common thing that people do. They'll go buy a bag of lime and a bag of fertilizer, and they think they have to put lime on their soil because their pH may not be, the right pH for whatever they're doing. Again, like I said, stop. You don't know unless you go to the soil doctor to find out what's actually in your soil. Now, I'm actually going to be doing 3 soil tests this year. I haven't done one in a while. I'm going to be doing one for my blueberries because the pH of blueberries is much lower than your regular garden. I need to find out what's going on with them. My second one is going to be for my apple trees and plants that are in the dirt, like the regular earth. And the third one's going to be for my raised beds. Now, and I'd say almost 100% of my vegetables are grown in raised beds. And my herbs are grown in just, plots all over the garden. Now, a basic soil test is going to tell you about the following minerals, what you have in there: phosphorus, potassium, calcium. I'm not going to read all the way through it: sulfur, copper. And it's going to tell you what you need in the way of fertilizer to amend your soil. Now, you can get several different tests, by the way. You can get one for your lawn, your shrubs, and your vegetable garden. They're very different. They tell you in the soil tests how to go about doing it. It's very, very simple. Usually there's like a certain amount of you have to go around your garden, take a certain amount of dirt and put it in a bucket, and then get one sample, which is kind of representative of your whole lawn or whatever you're doing. And it's very simple. Now, most counties will have soil tests. They're not very expensive. Universities will have soil tests. Even like Brooklyn College will test your soil for heavy metals. Especially if you're in an urban situation, you might want to have your soil tested for heavy metals. And they do this for anybody in the United States. So you get a soil sample, you just send it off to them. And I'm sure there's a lot of other universities that do that as well. I just happened to come across them and I thought, well, I'll share that information with you. There's also private labs that do much more detailed testing, or very similar to the universities. I'm going to be sending mine to Rutgers. I'm in New Jersey. That's who does my soil tests, but there is quite a few private labs as well. Now, another thing that the soil test will tell you is pH, which is extremely, extremely important because vegetables and certain, fruit trees and whatever need a certain pH to prosper. Now, they're also going to test for humic matter and exchange acidity, big terms, but it will explain a little bit more about your soil. Now, this is a picture of one of my green beans, and I looked at it when I put it up on the PowerPoint, and I said, wait a second, I should have picked that green bean. That's really way overdue. It's way long. But I wanted to show you the color of the leaves. Look how beautiful those leaves are. They're bright green. They're beautiful. And this is from my beds, and it's because of what's in my soil. Now, I pulled a page from the Old Farmer's Almanac. It's a table of vegetable pHs. It's actually on the web. And what's great about this is it shows you the level of pH for growing certain vegetables. And as you can see, it's pretty wide. But sometimes people are in the 4s, their pHs, or maybe they're in the 8s or the 9s, and some of these plants won't do well. And if you notice potatoes, which I thought was really telling, 4.8 to 6.5, it's more on the acidic side. So I looked at that and I said, that's probably why my potatoes really aren't that big. My soil's more on the 6.57, so I'm kind of, just reaching there. So maybe I need to not put lime, but something to make the soil go down to maybe that lower standard, maybe 5, kind of like I do with my blueberries. You also need to know what kind of soil you have. You can either have clay, sandy, or silt. And clay is just kind of what it sounds like. It's clay. It's hard. It binds really well when you press it in your hands. It doesn't break apart. It's not crumbly. And that kind of tells you how water has trouble permeating clay soil. It kind of like just sits there. I have killed so many evergreen trees on my property because I have clay soil. And when we planted the trees, we didn't amend it so that to allow for water to, drain out. And so what happens in rainstorms is the water just sits in the clay, and it's like sitting in a bathtub. And a plant doesn't like to have its roots constantly wet, and this is what's happened. So unfortunately, I learned the hard way. Sand is just like it sounds, like, water just goes right through it, and silt is beautiful. So you want a combination of, silt, sand, and clay, mostly silt and clay. And Fine Gardening, you'll see the link below if you can, just write it down. That has a great tutorial how to find out what kind of soil you have. Like I said, I have clay. Yeah, that kind of looks like my soil, except mine's darker. I have clay, and as I said before, it drains really, really bad. Sand, on the other hand, doesn't really hold nutrients. So I've given you two articles that you can, I think you can link from them from the PowerPoint. I don't know, but otherwise, just write them down. That tells you how to mend your soil if you have clay or sand. And if you see the common denominator here is compost. Compost is like the best thing in the world. It's like, it helps everything. It'll help your clay, your sand, and you can buy compost. You can get a lot of your compost. Like for instance, in my case, my county actually makes compost out of leaves and grass. So I buy a lot of their compost, and it just really amends the soil, and it gives a lot of nutrients in the soil. As I mentioned before, I grow in raised beds, and one of the reasons I grow in raised beds is a couple things. I just get tired of dealing with my clay soil. It's just not easy, especially with vegetables. They really are very sensitive. They need to drain well. A bigger plant can take it. These are little plants. They can't. Like, my sage plant that's planted in my clay soil that I've amended is a much bigger plant than a carrot plant. A carrot plant's just going to die in my clay soil if I don't amend it. So I use my raised beds a lot, and that's like mostly compost and topsoil are in my raised beds. And the reason that I love raised beds so much is that it gets the soil warmer quicker. Now I'm zone 6, so to grow something like watermelon or cantaloupe, I need a really long growing season, and I need it to be warm, and those beds are warmer a lot quicker than the soil that's in, just the plain earth. So that's one of the reasons I also use raised beds. Now this is a picture of the back garden. Right now, wow, this picture is like probably about 5 years old. I've doubled this. There's like probably 20 some odd beds back there. And those are my tomato cages. And as you can see, that's an apple tree in the front that's got like a water baggie around it. That tree is probably 3 times the size right now. Number 2, proper space planting. Wait, I said that wrong. Proper plant spacing. Sorry about that. This is, I'm pretty sure, my edamames. And I planted a couple different ways in this picture. I don't do this anymore, but as you can see in the front, it's kind of more spaced out based on the seed package. And in the back was more of it's called a seed square, no, a square method of growing. And it's very intensive gardening where you plant plants much closer and they yield really well. But a lot of people just randomly plant. They'll say, oh, it looks teeny, so I'll just put it here and I'll put another teeny plant here, not realizing that those plants are going to get a lot bigger. And I have done this. People will put tomato plants. They're these skinny little things and they think, oh, they're just going to stay skinny. Yeah, if you keep them pruned. Otherwise, they're going to be at least 2 feet wide. So what I need you to do is check the seed packet. Seed packets are great. They tell you, how deep the hole needs to be, and when you should plant, and the spacing. I mean, this is what these seed companies do. So heed their advice. And seriously, check the internet. I do a lot of research before I plant something that I don't know. Because I just don't want to have failures. Now, you are going to have a lot of conflicting advice, not a lot. So 2 sources that I love, love, love is Mother Earth News and Organic Gardening. Those are the two sources that I love. They're both magazines, but they're also online, and they write a lot online about how to grow certain things. Fine Gardening is also another great source. Now, I was mentioning the square foot gardening rules. I think you might be able to click the link in this recording to that. Otherwise, just Google square foot gardening. It's very intensive gardening, and um, it's not for everybody. You have to realize that some plants aren't great with square uh, foot gardening, like tomatoes. They have it like you can put eight in an 8 foot bed. No, you can't. They get way too big, maybe four. It's you have to like kind of use a little common sense. Beans do great with square foot gardening. Um, what I do is I invest in something called Grow Veg, which is a garden planner. I pay for it every year. It's like $24. It's not expensive. And I create my own virtual beds and space out the plantings based on their recommendations. When to plant, how to space them. You could click and say, I want to do square foot gardening. It tells you. Or you can say, I want to do conventional. It'll tell you. It's really great. It tells me when I should be planting my fall, what I can plant in my fall given my zone. It is worth the investment. Now, there's also a free one by Mother Earth News. You can Google it. You'll find it. I'm sure it'll come up really quickly. I've never used it, but it is free. Now, if you plant your plants way too close, this is going to happen. It's obvious you're going to kill your plants. They can get infested with bugs. Bugs know when plants are in distress, and it's almost like attack. So you just don't want to have plants putting out those signals, I'm in trouble. They barely grow because they don't have any room to grow. They kill or shade other plants. Your broccolis and your cauliflowers get very leafy and very wide. So if you're planting something underneath it, you better make sure that it can take partial shade because that plant will shade out your other plants. Plants can get powdery mildew when they're way too close because they have no air circulation. Or they can get other types of like mildew. And I swear white flies know when you have no airspace because they just show up. But they just show up anyways, especially with collard greens. But you don't want to do that. In fact, to give you a short story, I have 3 beds of kale and other brassicas, and I didn't have the heart to pull some of the kale plants that sprung up because kale reseeds itself every year. And they were springing up all over the place. I kept saying, more kale for me. Well, that was really dumb because there was just no air circulation. I had a cover over them because of the bugs, and it just had no air circulation, and I had to end up chopping down 3 full beds of kale and throwing them in the compost because I was scared to eat kale with powdery mildew. I don't know whether I could or couldn't. There was conflicting information on the web, and I just said it's just not worth the problem. You can't imagine how my heart sunk when I was cutting, all this kale down. Number 3, not enough sun or too much sun. Some vegetables are heat-loving plants and they need at least 6 hours or more of sun, while others prefer some shade in the afternoon or can grow in partial shade. Now, a lot depends on where you live. Like, for instance, tomatoes for me will be okay even during the, very hot season because it's not that long of a season. But maybe if you're in Texas or another place like that, they may need some afternoon shade because they can't take the heat, or you may have to get seeds that are directly just for your area. So, always go on your state university sites. They tend to always have information about what can grow in your area. But all is not lost if you don't have the perfect conditions. Vegetables that need full sun are your beans, tomatoes, and peppers. It's generally kind of the plants that survive only after a frost. They usually need a lot of sun. Cantaloupe and watermelon, like I mentioned before, they need a lot of sun. Vegetables that can grow in partial shade are beets, carrots, kale. These are typically plants that you would put in when it's a little cooler before frost. So kind of use that as your gauge. And like I said, everybody's area is different. You may need a little bit more shade in the afternoon for certain plants because they just can't take the heat. Again, check your state universities, your county agricultural offices, and nurseries for any, for the right information. Number 4, plant at the right time. And I can't stress this enough. Now, I have a picture of my garden. This was in the fall, probably 2 or 3 years into gardening. It's funny because there's beds all around this garden at this point, so it definitely doesn't look like this. And I have a heavy duty cover over my tomatoes because I was bound and determined that I was going to eke out every green tomato. It was going to ripen. Well, sorry to tell you, it didn't happen. It was just way too cold. But think of your plants like you would think of yourself. Would you want to be stuck out in the cold when you're just barely an itty bitty plant? And not really. So you got to think of it that way. Plants need to harden off, and I'm going to get to that. So let's talk about things that you need to do. Some plants need to be sown at a certain amount of time before they can be put outside in the ground. For instance, broccoli, it needs at least 6 weeks before you can put it outside if you're growing it inside your house. A lot of people go to nurseries, and a lot of those plants have already been hardened off, so you don't have to do that if you go to a nursery and buy your plants. But again, make sure they are nice sized plants, and please make sure they're organic because at least you know what's in the soil that they grew those plants in. Some plants can be planted in the garden, can't be planted into the garden until after frost. And I'm going to tell you, be conservative. I have friends that can't wait to get tomatoes in, and they put them in April. I think they're crazy, and they put they're called walls of water around them to keep them warm. You know what? It's just not worth it to me. It's not worth it from the cost or the aggravation if they die. And you could have a freak frost like we did 2 years ago, zone 6, when there was a frost after Mother's Day, and it killed my basil. And I was beyond the frost date for me is May 10th, and you'd say, "Oh, you're no problem." Well, it killed my basil. So now I err on the side of being more conservative. And you also notice in the seed packages, a lot of them will say 2 weeks after frost date. So listen to their advice. They know what they're talking about. And that's what with my tomatoes and my basil, it doesn't go out to almost Memorial Day now. I just don't want to lose it. And they catch up, so don't worry about it. There's no race here. Some plants need to be planted in June or July, like fennel or Spanish radishes, because they're cool weather plants and it gives them a longer growing season to mature, rather than planting them in April when it's going to turn hot, zone 6, by the end of May, and then they're just going to bolt, which means they send up flowers and they don't do anything with their roots, and it's just again another waste. Again, this all depends on your zone. Some plants love cold, like peas, and they hate it when it gets warm, and they shrivel up, and they're like the Wicked Witch of the West. When she got water poured on her, and she said, "I'm melting." That's what the peas do. Okay, I know your head is spinning, and 9 years of mistakes taught me one thing. Read the seed packages. I can't tell you more than that. Just read the seed packages. Err on the side of being conservative. As I mentioned, I wait till Memorial Day to plant my tomatoes and basil. Don't read the Farmer's Almanac. It's online and it gives you all these dates for your zones of when to plant things, and I swear they're like 3 weeks too early for everything. I don't trust their dates. If the seed package tells you 2 weeks after your frost date, you can find out your frost date. Err on that side. Err on the latest frost date. I know with, you know, climate change, our frost dates seem to be changing a little bit. Like there's things that I can plant in my zone that I didn't used to. I think when I started, I think I was zone 5, and now I'm zone 6. But again, be conservative. Make sure you harden off your plants. And I gave you a link there that teaches you how to harden off your plants. What that means is gets them ready to go outside. And it's about a week or two process of exposing your plants to outside in the sun a little bit at a time. So by the time they get out there, they're nice and strong because they're used to growing inside or in a greenhouse. So they're not used to wind. They're not used to rain or bugs or any of that stuff. And it's just kind of like telling yourself to go outside without any clothes on. You wouldn't do that. So harden off your plants. Mother Earth News also has a great article kind of about when to plant, and it gives you kind of guidelines no matter where you are. Like I said, the plants like beans and corn and tomatoes are always after frost. Number 5, not fertilizing your plants. This is one of my strawberries plants that I grow. I grow strawberries. I love growing them. They're a lot of fun. But as I told you before, it's all about the soil, but I am going to tell you about some of the fertilizers. There's three types of fertilizers. There's side dressing. We're going to talk about that next. I cannot say this word for the life of me, but basically what this is spraying your leaves. And I use a seaweed concoction. And direct. This is where people actually put fertilizer in their soil before they plant any of their beds. And this is back to what I was telling you before. Don't do this unless you have a soil test because you're just wasting your money. I put compost in my beds every year. I give them a new helping of compost. I put a little bit of worm poop in them too as well, and just mix it up. And that's what I do. I don't really add any extra fertilizer or anything. Now, Urban Farm Seeds has a great link, and I put it up on the PowerPoint of when to fertilize. And it kind of gives you a guideline, if assuming that your plants are doing really well, staying nice and leafy green, of when to fertilize. And honestly, I was surprised when I read this because I happen to be the person that goes around like every 3 weeks and gives everybody fertilizer, and it's really not needed. I'm wasting a lot of money. It's just making me feel good. The plants are sitting there going like, really? I don't need this. I never fertilize my beans. They don't need it. So take a look at this for a while, and if you want to stop on the replay, if you want to stop it and read this and write down some notes, go ahead. This is really a great page. Again, I'm not going to say that word because I can't say it. I don't know why. It is feeding your leaves, and they've done studies and shown that leaf absorption is really great for the plant. But the jury's kind of still out. There's a lot of yes, do it, and no, don't even bother. And Linda Chalker Scott, she's one of my favorite writers. She is out of, I think it's Washington State or University of Washington. I don't remember where. But she also, I call her the myth buster. And she always writes a lot about, myths that we hear in gardening. And there's a lot of them. And one of them was spraying the leaves, and she believes that you really shouldn't spray your leaves that often unless they really, really need it, like they're starting to turn yellow or they just don't look happy. They're not as beautifully green as they should be. And if you are going to spray, you want to spray early morning or late afternoon because otherwise you will burn the leaves, and that doesn't look good. You want to do it in temperatures below 80 degrees and only spray if they need it, if they're in distress. You can tell their leaves are drooping. They're not bright, beautiful green. Maybe they have some bug infestation. That could help them a little bit to get over that hump. They're pretty hardy, and only use an OMRI approved seaweed, and which that means is a product that's been approved for organic spraying. Your head is probably swimming right now from garden overload. I've given you a lot of information. And believe me, there's more up in my head. There's a lot to learn about gardening. So I want you to either start a garden or be a better gardener. And I wanted to show you a picture of my bee balm. This is bee balm. And no, I didn't Photoshop that butterfly. He actually, or she actually, posed for me. They're so nice when I have my camera out there. Bee balm is a great plant, and I wanted to show you how vibrantly green this is. Again, going back to soil. And you do want to plant, even as a better gardener, you do want to plant plants like bee balm or other ones that invite beneficial insects into your garden. And this is showing you the butterflies, and that will also help you to make you a better gardener. It's not just all about the vegetables. So I decided to create a course with you to walk you through an entire season with me. Think of me as your garden coach. But I need your help. I need your help to design the course for the next year for a group that is newbies or needs a little more help or is a veteran gardener but still having some issues with success in certain areas. So what I decided to do is to discount the course because you're going to be giving your feedback to me on each one of the videos that I produce. And in this course, I'm going to be sharing 15 videos with you throughout the season of different areas of gardening. Like, for instance, the topics that will include sowing seeds, planting in the garden, fertilizing, pest problems, and harvesting. Plus, I'm going to tell you all the products that I use. and fill you in on my gardening secrets. And believe me, that's priceless. That's 9 years of screw ups and successes. So, again, I need your help to design this course. Plus, there's more. There's a private Facebook group where you can communicate with your fellow gardeners to help each other. There'll be 3 1-hour webinars during the season where you could just ask me questions, and they'll be recorded if you can't attend. And I'm probably figuring May, July, and September. In addition to which, the Seed Square people are giving you a discount, which is this great square that helps you to plant your seeds. It's so much easier. It kind of outlines where they should go and how deep. It's marvelous. I am so excited about this product. Plus, you'll get lifetime access to the course. So if it's updated, you're grandfathered. Normally, this course would cost $350. But you're only going to pay $199, and I'm holding this price open until March 19th at 11:59 p.m. Therefore, thereafter, it goes to $350. Garden season's about 30 to 35 weeks. So it will cost you literally less than $7 a week to be successful in your garden. And that equates to 1.5 organic cauliflowers. And if you think about all the mistakes you've made and the cost of those mistakes, or that you're buying a lot of organic produce which you could be growing yourself, that's $7 a week you'll get back very quickly. So I'm going to put a link below because it won't work in PowerPoint. For some reason, PayPal and PowerPoint don't work together, of where you can pay for this course. And like I said before, I'm going to hold this price for a week, and I hope I see you on the other side, meaning that I hope I see you in the course. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your gardening this season.